And here we go. Hey folks, today I'm with Amanda Foust. Thank you so much and welcome to Alex Marxs Podcast, Amanda.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm so honored to have you. Actually happy as well because we met through social media. Amanda is founder of Homegrown and also leadership coach. Homegrown is the marketing agency, right? That you founded.
Yeah.
Perfect. And you're based in the US, right?
I'm what? Based in the US?
Yes.
Yes, I'm from Indiana in the United States.
Well, there's a nice song, Kokomo,
Yeah.
quite famous song. I forgot
That's
which
literally
band.
where I'm from, is Kokomo.
Nice. Amanda, I always ask the guests to introduce themselves by their own words. So please, use this space. Who is Amanda by Amanda?
Yeah, so you kind of said it a little bit already. I'm a leadership coach, run a marketing agency called Homegrown Collective. I am a mom of four, so that's like my favorite job is motherhood. I have kids ages 10 up to 15. And so I'm definitely in that I don't know, they're in activities all the time. We're running all everywhere. So it's been a really fun time in motherhood as well. And I've been married for, I think this is our 14th year.
Wow, well done. Congratulations. Yeah. I only got married last year. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm starting, and my first year of marriage will be this one. But it's been a happy
Yeah.
life. My wife is American, by the way, but from Philly.
That's great. Where's she from?
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was actually born in New York, but her family is based in Pennsylvania. So.
Okay.
Well, Amanda, you specialize in coaching, right? High performance leaders and so on.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience, what separates an average leader to a really exceptional leader? And why did you choose this path as well, specifically to leadership, which is really interesting?
Yeah, no, those are great questions. So I would definitely say there's many things that can separate a good leader or an average leader, as you said, from an exceptional one. But if I had to pick one thing that really separates them, I would say it's their ability to be able to lead themselves. Because so many times leaders focus on leading others and what it's like to guide and lead, but they don't think about what they need to be doing to lead themselves first. Because once they're able to lead themselves, then that helps them to be able to lead without burning out because they've done what they need to maintain their own leadership. But also I feel if we even think about our leading kids, like I just said, I'm a mom. My kids listen to what I show them more than what I tell them. And so as a leader, we need to be able to lead ourselves well in order to lead others well. So that's what I would say stands out the most.
Interesting. I like the approach that you mentioned related to if you lead yourself, you also are able to lead a group or team.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest challenge that you think people face as a leader and they actually dismiss that thing so much?
The challenge? I'm trying to remember what I was thinking here.
Or the most common one that leaders come to you and they report and say, hey, I'm facing this challenge here. And you notice that is something very common in the industry.
Yeah, I would definitely say one of the biggest challenges is balancing, if it's a business leadership thing, balancing all the things that need to be done in the business while also balancing your team, I would say is one of the biggest reasons that people come to me needing a coach is I don't know how to do well in all of these areas. I have these goals of my business that I feel take priority, but also I have this team over here that needs me and needs me to guide them, and I don't know how to do it all. That can definitely be a big barrier. And a lot of the things that I have found, there's many ways to help with that, but one of the number one things that they're usually missing is systemization in their business. Because once they're able to systematize things, then they're able to free themselves up to be the leaders they want to be. And it keeps them out of the day-to-day grind in their business that's holding them back from being a good leader. So that's usually where we start. It's just what are you automating? What are you needing to systematize so that you can focus on what you want to do with your team?
Have you noticed that also any habits that successful leaders, they have themselves and high achievers they have, and if you can share this piece of advice as well?
Yeah, so luckily that's easy because I'm a high performance coach through Brennan Burchard, and he did all the research on that. And what he discovered through a ton of research was that high performance leaders have high performance habits, and there are 5 of them that they've studied. And those 5 habits are clarity, energy, productivity, influence, and courage. And those are the 5 habits that I coach on as well, because when you can get those 5 habits in line, then you start to be able to show up as a high performer, and it's a game changer at that point. And I would say, like, when it comes to a mindset habit, because they are kind of different, there's like action-based habits and then mindset habits. The habit that stands out most for me when it comes to mindset would be having a mindset of curiosity. I definitely think that that's a habit that makes all the difference, because when you can get curious about learning and curious about others and curious about solutions, then that really, really helps grow your leadership. And again, is kind of that way to self-lead, like I mentioned before.
What inspired you to choose this path in your career? You mentioned as well, like you were a marketeer beforehand. How did you discover yourself in this industry? Like, oh, now I feel I should become a leadership coach.
Yeah. So that kind of just found me. I didn't necessarily like go out being like, I'm going to be a leadership coach, but I do still run the marketing company. And through running that marketing company, I work with leaders. Like, that's who hires the marketing company, is leaders. And I realized just what a big lack there is in good leadership. And to be clear, it's not that I really don't think people want to be bad leaders. Like, I don't think anyone sets out to be a terrible leader, but we also all can name terrible leaders. Like, we've all experienced it. We've all lived it. And so being able to like look at that and see, hey, what I don't want to be, but also being able to see like what they could improve on. And one of my giftings is like, I just have a lot of clarity around people. So like if I'm talking to somebody, I don't necessarily say everything that I think, but I'm able to really see like where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, where there's room for improvement, their potential, all of that. Like I just see it like that. And so that's really served me in coaching, because though they haven't necessarily asked for that, so I don't say anything. When someone does ask for it and does hire me, it's very, very clear what path they need to be on to be.
Wow. I love the piece where you mentioned, like, don't become the bad experience that you had, like what it shouldn't be. Especially because sometimes people get traumatized and they carry on and they pass that to others, And I think that shouldn't be this way. I think you should break the cycle.
Absolutely.
Once you become a leader. Many leaders, they struggle with self-confidence, right? Especially managing like larger groups and larger number of colleagues and so on. What would be your piece of advice, and why do you think they face this thing with self-confidence and self-doubt?
Yeah. So with confidence, there's like this thing called confidence-competence loop. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a really neat concept, because it talks about how the more you can become competent in something, the more you automatically develop confidence. So it's this loop. So you're getting more and more competent in whatever it is you're trying to be competent in. And then that's going to give you more confidence. And then when you have more confidence, you're willing to try new things. And then you're going to get more competent, and it just keeps going. And so oftentimes though, we don't want to step into that loop. Like, we feel scared, we feel stuck, we feel afraid, and we don't want to fail. And so we just don't try, or we just keep doing the same thing over and over, and then wonder why we aren't feeling more confident, or we aren't having the momentum we need to gain confidence. And so my advice whenever somebody is lacking confidence, especially leaders, is to really develop their competency. And to do that, it's trying and failing and improving and growing. And that's going to ultimately lead you into more confidence.
There's no shortcut at all. Like, it's all about trying and failing and being resilient through the journey, right?
Absolutely.
Are you enjoying the episode? Please don't forget, turn on notifications, whether on Spotify or YouTube. Don't forget, give your like to the episode on YouTube. That helps the algorithm keeps reaching new people that might be interested to this episode and get new insights. If it's on Spotify, make sure by the end of the episode, you leave your review with 5 stars. That also helps the algorithm understand to reach new audiences based on this feedback. The last but not least, give your comment. That helps me to understand your feedback, your opinion, and your take on the episode. Other than that, let's keep enjoying this episode together. Well, I also noticed that high performance isn't about working harder, right? It's about working smarter.
Yes.
What you say about is the biggest productivity issue that leaders they face in this common grounds of working harder and pushing harder, but don't get the results that they expected,
Yeah. So high performance leaders have no problem working hard. Like, that's not a thing. And so as you said, though, It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. And so what I have discovered is that too many leaders spend their time on a lot of different things that don't actually move the needle forward. And so I remember having to have even a heart to heart with my team before a couple of years back, where they were all hard workers. They were all executing a ton of things, but I kind of called them out in a way where I was like, but how much are we focused on results? Because I would rather you work half the amount of time, like not even having to work that hard and getting bigger results. And in order to do that, you have to shift your mindset into like, okay, I am going to focus on the needle moving activities, which means you have to have clarity of what your goal is in order to know what those needle moving activities are. But then it's like, okay, when you can start thinking smarter instead of working harder, you start to get more innovative, you get more creative ideas, you get more solutions. Like whenever we create that urgency within us that like, hey, we have to hit these results, and it's not about how hard you work. It's like literally about if we hit these results, it's amazing what kind of solutions a team or yourself can come up with. So yeah, definitely having clarity of your big picture goal and what those needle moving activities are, and then only working on those things rather than, working on hours and hours on end without a goal in mind.
I have a question related, for example, to what we faced a few years ago with COVID, right? And we started like working remotely, and it was a big shift in the market. And now we are coming back to the office like 5 days a week as it used to be. Do you think the work remote pushed also a little bit of distance, like increased the gap between leaders to the team and communications as well, like increase the gap between them?
Because of remote work? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's just creates more of an expectation on leaders to be intentional. I never did the working on site with a team. So I may not be the best person to answer this because we've always been remote, but I do know the leaders that I've worked with who weren't always remote and then are now, or at least have a hybrid vibe now. They have just had to learn how to cultivate that same kind of culture, except remotely. And that just creates more opportunity for creativity and innovation and intention, really. So it can be done. It just has to be done with intention a lot more than when you're on site.
It's this interesting perspective. It's just because I've been reading a lot related to this, and one of the main points people have been making is like we miss the contact, like the humanized touch, and being in the office and chatting about the issue and solving in the office. But as a business founder, what was your biggest lesson throughout this journey, and also the biggest challenge that you faced for founding, Homegrown?
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of challenges. There still are, because that's just what happens when you're in a business. But I would say probably like my biggest challenge at first, I am naturally a visionary, and most leaders are actually. They're the visionary. They don't necessarily work in systems and organization. And so I have found in myself and in those that I've worked with that it's really easy to lack the systems you need to grow and scale. And so I spent several of my years just really overwhelmed with work and working a lot because I was basically starting from scratch with every client. I didn't document what I did. I didn't have SOPs. I didn't have any automations. I just literally got a new client and started from scratch. Like I had the ideas, I knew how to make it work, but I made it so much harder for myself on the back end. So the client didn't necessarily like feel that, but I did. And so learning how to systematize things, learning how to be like, okay, I've done it once. Now, how do I automate some of these things? Or how do I create this process that when a client comes in, they just automatically go through this, and then I can free myself up to be in my zone of genius instead of being in this like back and forth hamster wheel of constant work that I was in. So definitely a big lesson I learned was start with your systems.
Wow. You mentioned that you're visionary and so on, but how this business idea came up? Like, how you had that feeling in your heart, like I should start my own business and I should go for it? And if you can mention at what age like you were when you founded your business as well, would be interesting.
Yeah. So I graduated college when I think it was like 21, 22. And I wanted to be a mom pretty early on. Like that was my main thing I wanted to do. And part of being a mom was wanting to be home with my kids. Okay. And I just knew that that's what I wanted, but I also knew I wanted to work. So I was like, well, in order to do that, I'm either going to have to find remote work, which wasn't really a thing then. Like that would have been a lot easier now than then, or just start my own thing. And one of the things that I was really good at and still am is writing. And so I did a lot of just either ghostwriting, or I would write for different publications or different things like that. As a journalist, I wrote for my local newspaper. Like I just wrote all the time. And then I learned just kind of through happenstance that there was like a form of writing, which is copywriting, and that works for marketing. So it attracts leads, it gets sales, it gets business. And that's what I kind of needed to do as a business owner. So I started by doing that for myself and learned the art of copywriting. And then with getting clients for copywriting, they started asking for other things. And again, I was building my own business. So I was building my own website, my own email list, my own social media, like all of that was happening. And so I was having to learn it for myself. But then clients at the time were like, well, could you do this too for me? Could you do this too for me? And it just kind of was like, well, yeah, I could. And so I just started like trying and getting better and better and better. And then I started realizing like, well, I can't do all these things. I can't be the designer, the website creator, the copywriter, all of that. So it started to be like, not only do I need to scale and grow a team, but I need to hire people who are even better than me at these things, because I'm just kind of like, I was good, but I wanted people who were great. And so that's what I did, is I hired experts in the field, and we've grown from there.
Wow, that's a really powerful line that you left now. You know your vulnerability in some areas, and you wanted the great ones for those. So well done. And if you are starting your business again from today, from the scratch, like what you would do differently?
If I were to start my business, I think honestly, going back to systems, it's the same answer. I would have started with that and spent a lot less time. It feels funny now because it feels so obvious now because we have amazing systems in place, but I just really didn't understand that concept when I started. So I think so many leaders don't want to backtrack. They feel like it's backtracking to create systems, because there is kind of like not a complete pause or anything, but there is a little bit of pulling back and pausing to get your systems in place before you can really launch. And that can scare a lot of leaders, because it's like, no, we got to keep going. We got to keep pushing. But I've worked with such incredible companies on the outside. But then when I start working with them, I see the inside and the behind the scenes. And I'm like, you guys are all leaving money on the table. You're missing opportunities, all because you just don't have systems in place. So that's what I would definitely go back and change.
That's good. What does that mean, marketing relational, for those who don't know about it? And it's something interesting, especially because some of the audience, I'm quite sure, doesn't understand much of the technical areas of marketing. So please, if you could explain to us.
Yeah, so Homegrown Collective is a relational marketing agency. And basically, the bottom line, that it just means that we believe that relationships are your greatest asset in business. And so sometimes that can be confusing, because it's like, okay, so are you saying I should use my relationships? Like that can feel a little bit like manipulative. And, that's not at all what we're talking about. It's not an excuse to ask your relationships for things that like make them uncomfortable or awkward conversations. It's literally not that. It's learning how to look at your people, look at your connections, expanding your connections, and not necessarily seeing them as like, what can I get from them? Instead, it's like offering value to them, pointing them in the direction that you think that they should go to grow. And then they want to become ambassadors and referrals for your brand, maybe even customers themselves. And they want to tell their audiences, and their audiences tell their audiences all about what you do, simply because you've spent time on relationship, which is like so lacking in the world today. So it's just like making intentional connections with either your local community, or I guess a digital community in my case, and learning how to really make your ideal customers feel seen and want to be a part of your success because of your relational approach.
And what is the point where you feel the industry, like in general, they struggle with that, like in the marketing relational, and how they can apply this method effectively?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest ways that people struggle with this is that when you're in business, I call it like putting your business hat on. Sometimes we're a little bit different with our business hats than we are as just humans.
Okay.
But when we put our business hat on, so many times people will see people as numbers. Like they stop being people and they're just numbers at that point. And that's when things get dangerous, I guess. I don't know that dangerous is the right word, but it can be really difficult at that point to scale, because when you're only seeing people as numbers, they feel that. Like they can sense that, and it can be through your ads. It can be through the way you show up online. Like And it's starting to make people like pull back a little bit and be like, I don't know if that person's for me. Whereas when you can stop seeing people as just like a numbers or a means to an end for you, like, how can I take advantage of this or that? When you can shift that mindset and stop that and actually see people as people and approach them in a way of like, I just want to serve, I just want to add value, that can definitely make all the difference because people are lacking in genuine connections and like no expectations approach.
Wow. Marketing now is very fast-paced. It's changing a lot, new trends all the time. And where you feel like usually business, they are falling apart. They're not following this trend.
Where do I feel they're falling apart? Is that what
Yeah, especially as well, let's be focused on AI, for example. There are a lot of businesses, they're trying to introduce AI and they're quite struggling. Like they're falling apart this trend. Is there any specific reason that you could mention that you see in the industry why like businesses in general, they have this problem to implement new trends and new tools that's supposed to help, they improve their performance and so on?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts on that. I think, well, for one, I think people have trouble implementing because there's so many options out there that people don't know where to start. And so, there are a lot of marketing gurus out there. I probably see more than the average person because my algorithm knows I'm in marketing. So it shows me a lot of marketing things, but it's really easy to get caught up in like, well, this marketing guru said this and this marketing guru says this and this trend's out there and this new AI thing's out there. And we get like almost frozen because we don't know where to start because there's just too many options. And I always try to recommend to my clients, like, take a step back and stop listening to what the internet's telling you to do for your marketing and start to approach marketing from like, what does my ideal client respond to? Like, what does my ideal audience respond to? Because when we can get into their head and their, I guess, consumer habits, it's going to be really different than what everyone else may think. So we don't have like this one size fits all approach. We've tried so many different strategies and honestly, so many different ones have worked. They've just worked for different types of businesses. And so there is no like, if you do this, or if you do this AI tool or that AI tool, it's all going to work. That's not how it is. It's more like, how can you adapt AI or adapt a marketing strategy to actually speak to and reach your audience?
Do you think AI could be a threat or could be a friend for businesses and for even creators and marketing agencies nowadays? Do you think in the future it's a threat in terms of a marketing agency will be disputing now with AI, to get clients and to fulfill the same tasks that humans used to do? Or just see like as more your colleague now, your friends, like you help you in this way? What's your take on that?
When AI first was like introduced, I remember having a conversation with my team because there wasn't spoken fear. Like they didn't say they were afraid, but I'm sure there was a little bit like, okay, there's AI out there now. Like they can do what we can do. What's the game plan? And so I just remember telling them like, we're going to view AI as a partner and not as an enemy. And when we can partner with AI, that's going to make our clients trust us more, because if we were to say, don't use AI, just use us, like that's silly. That's not going to serve them well. They should be using AI and so should we, because that's just what we should be doing when it does benefit both them and us. But also, on the other hand, it would do a disservice to completely replace a marketing agency with AI because, we know how to use that tool, because that's what it is. It's a tool. We know how to use that tool in a way that's going to serve the client on a grander scale. Whereas if they're trying to do it on their own, are they going to get more results than they would have before AI existed? Yeah, but they're not going to get even better results when they partner it with marketing experts. So we just look at it as a way to partner.
All right. How do you think, like, what's the biggest achievement that you had as business owner so far, like throughout your career, throughout this journey that you had? Seems like you had a lot of experience in different situations in the market. And especially, I would highlight as well, if you had any periods that you thought, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with that. And how did you come out with a solution for your business and for yourself?
Yeah. So which one are we doing, the achievement or the challenge?
Let's start with I would start with the challenge and then the achievement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as far as like a challenge goes, I mean, like I said, I've been in business a while. There's challenges all the time. But I think it's more just like changing your perspective on what challenge is. I think like if we look at a challenge as what it says, a challenge, it can feel really overwhelming. And honestly, I'm to the point where there are challenges almost daily in business. And now, instead of looking at it as a challenge, though, I look at it as an opportunity, and I look at it as like a way to expand. So I know when I get to the other side of the challenge, I feel so much more expansion in myself, because I'm like, wow, look, I just conquered it, or my team just conquered it. And it feels like really good because it's an opportunity of expansion. But yeah, there's challenges all the time. I can't think of one that has stood out other than, like I said, the lack of systems in the beginning. I do know, like I mentioned before, that some of the leaders that I would work with could be a challenge, but I'm thankful for that, because that's what really showed me what kind of leader I want to be and how I want to be as a leadership coach.
Right. And for the achievements?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about this one. I don't know if this one was on the list. So as far as achievement, I mean, not to be corny or anything, but I think the first thing that comes to mind is that I've been able to like successfully build my business with high integrity.
Okay.
And, I think that I've done a lot of things as far as like being published in really amazing platforms, and like I've been able to speak to big audiences. Like all those, I guess, would like technically be achievements. But I think the thing I'm most proud of is just being able to, like, at the end of the day, feel really good for the integrity I've shown up with, even if it was a challenge, or even if it was a hard, crucial conversation I had to have, or
Sure.
a client I had to let go. Like I let go of $100,000 contract one year because I just couldn't align with the ethics of the organization we were working with. And I was like, my integrity and who I am at the end of the day is more important than the money in my company. So stuff like that, I think, would be, even if that sounds weird, my greatest achievement.
That's great. And it can be always challenging also scaling teams. And you passed by this challenge when you said that you're growing your company and you found like you had to find people better than you.
Yeah.
But also it's hard to keep the company culture. What's the struggle that leaders they can face scaling their teams and also keep the company culture preserved?
Yeah, I think that starts in those first conversations. Like even in the interview, I have been able to sit in on or see people's interview processes before, especially with working with leaders. And so many of them are really focused on the skill set and like what you can bring to the team and, the expertise of who they're hiring, which all that's important and should be included in an interview, but they don't really ask anything about the culture. And so, even in that first interview, an example of a question could be like, well, what stands out to you about our company culture and why do you see yourself fitting into that? And if they are the right candidate, they should have researched your company culture, so they should be able to answer that question. But B, if they can't give you a solid answer to how they can see themselves fitting into that, then, again, it just probably isn't a good fit. So really starting from the beginning with what your company culture is and making sure they align is really important.
All right. And you help leaders have a sustainable growth. What would be the biggest misconception people have about sustainable growth and leadership in business?
Yeah, I think that like one of the biggest misconceptions I hear, like when I'm coaching leaders or just conversing with them, a lot of them have this false idea that there's like some sort of end destination. Like I'm going to arrive and there's this like goal out here that like once I get here, everything's going to be fine or everything's going to be good. And I know that there is no like final destination or arrival in leadership and business. It's continually evolving. It's continually changing. The milestone keeps moving forward. Even when you like get there, it just moves like further away. And so having that mindset of curiosity, like I said, as one of the habits is so important, because when you're able to look at an issue with curiosity, and then you're able to not feel so like, why aren't I there yet? Or why haven't I arrived? It's a misconception to think that you're going to arrive somewhere. It's all about the process.
Have you any inspiration in terms of the leader that you want to become? Like, is there someone in business that probably famous or someone that you worked with before that you feel inspired by?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm a lot less of a person who's like, this is the person I want to be. I am much more of like a pick and choose. Like I like this about this person, this about this person. And it's just like a collection of things. For example, Cody Sanchez is out there right now and like getting bigger and bigger. And there are qualities about her that I love and admire that I would like to either hope that I already am or want to develop within myself.
Yeah.
And then there's the other parts of her that I'm like, yeah, that's not me. That would be disingenuous if I were to show up that way. So I don't think that there's anyone that stands out as like being the type of leader I want to be necessarily. I will say that my grandpa, in a lot of ways, is a type of leader that I would want to be. He is the kind of guy where, like, anywhere he goes, he knows somebody. Everybody's always coming up to him, and they all have like great things to say about him. And he was in charge of HR of like this giant corporation. So tons of people in my community have either known him or been influenced by him in some way. And I really love that because he really exhibits relational leadership, because even having been retired for years and years and years, he's still remembered and he's still thought about really fondly.
That's also it. And probably also inspired you what you have now in your marketing agency, right? The marketing relationals.
Yeah.
Has so much to do with that,
Yes.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
What are some warnings and red flags that leaders, they should see that sign when they're scaling too fast and they're losing, the control of this growth?
Yeah, when their systems can't sustain their growth. That's really just bottom line what it is. When you're
Right.
growing so fast that you are making mistakes as a company because your systems aren't put in place yet.
And is there any advice that you would give for them to mitigate this, breakdown?
Yeah, I would definitely say like it's slowing down so that you can move forward quicker. For sure.
Cool. And you worked with many leaders, and what's the on leadership trend that you noticed as a shift that excites you most right now? Like something that you found, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, this part doesn't excite me. I believe that there is a crisis in leadership right now, so that's not the exciting part. But what I am excited about is like, due to there being a crisis in leadership where I feel like more and more people are waking up to see that like, hey, I actually have standards in how I want to be led or how I will be led. And, holding leaders accountable and encouraging leaders to take more ownership and responsibility to treat their teams better. That's what I'm excited about. I think that people waking up to that and there being this like push to better leadership is really exciting to me, because not only am I going to get to play a part in that as a leader, but I get to play a part in it as a leadership coach.
Do you think leaders in general, they have like the fear of showing vulnerabilities and fragility during the journey?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I preach on that all the time, and I still struggle with that. Even with my team, I had a meeting this morning with an individual on my team, and I was just like, I'm battling a little bit. I'm an external processor, and I say things that I'm feeling, and I was just like, I'm battling a little bit right now between wanting to be transparent with you, but also wanting to be professional. And so it's hard to have that line of like, I want them to see me as human. I want them to see my faults. I want them to trust in me because they know they're going to hear the real thing from me. But also there is a line where you've got to be professional. You can't share every little thing you're feeling or going through or what's happening behind the scenes, because that can also produce unnecessary fear in your team, or, just bring them into things that they don't need to be brought into. So it is hard to like be vulnerable and fragile as a leader. It's hard to find that balance.
Interesting. And do you see that the leaders, they should show some sort of vulnerability, or they should, as you said, like there's a balance, but do you think at all they should hold it with them, or it's fine if sometimes they show like some difficulties that they're facing and express that to the team? Do you think that would
I mean, I definitely think they need to sometimes, for sure. I just also have seen people swing too far the other way, where there's, crying, and not that you can't cry, but like showing too many emotions where it's like really scaring the team about like, where are we at? Like, is everything okay? Are we going to have a company anymore? Like, it's just, you got to be careful with that.
Interesting.
Excuse me.
No problems. And if you could go back to the time, if you could travel back to the time, what advice would you give to yourself, your younger version, starting your business and starting your career and everything that you built today?
I figured, I'm like, there's editing tools for this. So what I would go back and say to my younger self kind of goes along with what I was saying I was most proud of. And that is like reminding her to keep her integrity intact. I know that my younger self would have been so scared if she knew the types of conversations she's had to have as far as, those crucial conversations or those confrontations, whether it's with her team or with a client or something that would have been terrifying to her, but just reminding her, like, in order to keep your integrity, that's part of it. So yeah, just reminding her that that's going to be far more important than any amount of money she's going to make.
That's great. If you could have the opportunity to leave your message in an outdoor that would be shown to the whole world, what would be your message in one sentence?
Oh my goodness. See, I'm a words person, so being able to come up with that off the top of my head, not going to be easy because all these words just come rushing at me. That's more than a sentence. If I had to tell the world my message, yeah, I think this may not be exactly what it would be, but off the top of my head, my first thought is that going back to what I said about relationships are your greatest asset.
Wow, that's really interesting because I feel like people are losing connections more and more, especially with social media. Social media is all about creating connections, like you meet different people. And I'm glad, as I said in the beginning of the episode, I've met you and I created that connection. And not only you, but different professionals as well with social media, which it's supposed to be for, of course, using as a tool for your business, using as a tool for also building networking and so on. And I feel people dismiss badly that point. I have this perspective as a user. So the point where we touch about the relationship means a lot to me as well.
Yeah, I think it just goes with both of my loves, right? Leadership and marketing. It's what we do in both. So that's what I could come up with.
Well, before we finish, would you recommend a book for us, and a book that, I don't know, marked your life at some stage, like landed a beautiful message in your heart?
I'm a huge reader. I actually have a book list for leaders as one of my freebies, but I'm trying to think of like the best one. This one wasn't necessarily the best one, but I am going to mention it just because I talked about it a lot on this podcast. I talked about hard conversations. So Crucial Conversations is one that I really enjoyed. I also love Who Not How and The Gap in the Gain, which I think is by the same author.
Wow.
And then Leader, I think it's called The Leader Without a Title. That's one that I read recently. That's a quick read. That's good too. I know you asked for one, but
no, it's a good recommendations. I definitely will read them because I never read any of the ones that you mentioned now, so I can put on my list. Thanks.
They're good.
Let's go quickly on your website so you can tell us a little bit more. 1 second. For those on YouTube or watching us on Spotify, this is Amanda's website, wakeuptoyourlife.co. Here she has a planner. Is that a freebie that you offer, Amanda?
It's not a freebie. It's an actual product. It's called the Highest Potential Planner. It's a 90-day planner that I created a few years back and love it so much because you can literally plan in just 5 minutes a day, but it's planning more than just like your tasks and your to-do list. And it's actually planning your mindset and habits as well, but just really quick, like no fluff involved.
Oh, wow.
No one has time for the fluff.
I love your website, by the way. It looks so smooth and nice.
Well, it does help to, have a marketing company.
And also, people can come here and ask you to speak in the events, right? And also corporate leadership solutions. You do like consultation for businesses, right?
Yeah. So
or you work one-to-one?
One of them is the corporate leadership. So I come into corporations and do leadership coaching, whether it's like workshops or trainings or things like that for leaders. And then on the other side, I speak at conferences or on podcasts or at events on the topics of leadership or personal development.
Perfect. There's our podcast here as well. Wake Up to Your Life and Leadership Wake Up Call podcast. What would be the main difference between them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the Leadership Wake Up Call podcast is just kind of a standalone podcast. There's, I think, 3 episodes, maybe 5. That's more just like if you're somebody who is interested in hiring me as a leadership coach and you just want to know what I stand for, but I'm not doing that ongoing. This one that you're on right now, this one I do every week. This is Wake Up to Your Life. And I just drop a short episode. Usually they're 10 minutes or less. And it just gives people tips for how to wake up to a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
Nice. And you have also your blog.
Yeah.
I saw that you featured on Forbes, right?
Yeah. So I used to be a ghostwriter on Forbes. So I would write every week. And then I was a contributor on HuffPost. It was Huffington Post at the time. Now it's HuffPost. And then I also was a ghostwriter for Ink Talk.
Wow. Well, I'll give here my advice, you guys, to explore Amanda's website. She is full of content, and also her Instagram, Wake Up to Your Life. Is that your handle,
Yeah,
right?
my Instagram is Wake Up to Impact because that's my leadership
Impact.
style.
Okay, let me go here. Oops, you're just right here. So yeah, Wake Up to Impact, and here you guys can explore all the great contents that Amanda share. I actually really like this one here that you recently posted. How you built, a multi-six-figure company without networking. It's a really interesting story. Really, really interesting story.
Yeah,
Well
it goes
done.
along with relationships. We don't view people as a networking opportunity. You view them as a real connection.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for the conversation. As I say to every guest at the end of the episode, I feel like I was a different Alex before the episode, and I just finished this episode now, like, with my mind frying because I learned a lot.
Good.
And it's always great to have people like you, with visions and bringing different insights and sharing all your experience with us. So thank you so much for your time again and for our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for asking me, and I'm glad we worked this out.